In this series of videos, we've been looking at my personal project to produce a physical copy of the Bullet Catcher's Handbook, which is an in-world text mentioned in a number of my novels, featuring in the Fall of the Gaslit Empire and the Map of Unknown Things trilogies. And this is a design process I'm doing alongside my students, who are all doing their publication projects at De Montfort University in their third year creative writing course. And I kind of thought I would accompany them on the journey by doing my own project. In the previous 3 videos, we've been looking at the layout of internal pages using a combination of Microsoft Word and latterly also Adobe Acrobat. But in this video, we're going to start to think about cover design. Now, this video isn't really going to be focused on the technical aspects of using software, more on the concepts. So let's think about this for a moment. When we think of a book cover, other than the phrase that we'll often have heard, "Don't judge a book by its cover," which obviously we do. But beyond that, what is a cover and what does it do? Well, in some senses, it's doing a simple job of protecting the pages inside. Maybe they are more delicate, creasable, they can be damaged in various ways, and the cover is simply a barrier that is there on the outside to protect those pages inside. That is presumably where the idea of a book cover began. But obviously we treat it rather differently now. It's doing all kinds of jobs. So let's just very briefly think about the different kinds of jobs that it has been doing historically. So in each case, as we look through these different examples, we can see that the cover has taken on a job that's beyond merely protecting the inside pages. It is also in some way setting this book apart from other books in one way or another. So let's think for a moment way back to the medieval period and think about books like this. Now, this is obviously a very special book. It's got sort of jewels and gold in the cover, and it's a book of scripture. It's a Bible, and so in this sense, this embellishment on the outside is setting the book apart in terms of its sanctity. It's implying to anyone who comes to use this book that they are going to see something extraordinarily precious inside, and that since we've got gold and jewels protecting what's inside actually must be even more special than that. And so in this sense, that is one of the functions, an early function of covers, to imply sanctity, to imply some kind of really setting apart from everyday life. And then we can come forwards into the more mundane world, I suppose, of more recent books. Let's have a look at this 19th century novel. What it is in this case doesn't particularly matter, but we can see that the cover is, again, it's doing more than simply protecting the pages inside through the sort of embossing of the leather of the cover and the little bit of gilt illustration there. It is beautifying it. It's not doing anything else particularly. It's not really telling us too much about what's inside the book, but it's making the thing more an object of beauty. But then when we go into a bookshop today and we look at the range of books there, we can see that something else is happening. And we've seen how a cover can set the book apart in terms of sanctifying it, or the implication of sanctity, and then set it apart also in the terms of the implication of beauty and specialness, setting it apart from ordinary things in that way. But the modern cover sets the books apart with respect to each other, and it does quite a number of different jobs. And key to those is selling the book, obviously, because that's what the cover has become, very much a tool in marketing. So what do we find on the cover? Well, we find a title. That's one thing. So there's a title, there's quite often a strap line, another little piece of text to accompany the title, or perhaps a quotation in some way. And there is also a cover image. If we turn the book over, we find some writing on the back. That's the back cover copy. It's sometimes called the back blurb. And then, of course, we have the physical material that the cover is made of. And all these elements, these 5 things, are giving some kind of sense. They're engaging the person who comes across this object in such a way that hopefully they will feel the kind of emotions that might give rise to them buying the thing, which is kind of the point here. So is engaging with this, I think, on an emotional level. That's the way I see it. It's certainly one really important thing is it's establishing the genre of the book, so we know what sort of thing to expect. It may also give a suggestion of a story, that the suggestion that there is a story there. It probably conjures an atmosphere, and it hopefully imbues the person who comes across it with curiosity, so they want to open that book up and look inside. Now, I have to say, to sort of take a step aside for a moment from this analysis and say, I'm not a trained cover designer. I'm very much someone who's come to this from the point of view of being a reader and from the point of view of being a writer and thinking about covers in these terms for that reason. So do go and seek out other opinions, which you may find different from mine. I'm not claiming any particular authority in this. These are my personal observations. And just to show you how naive and actually potentially stupid I have been in my relationship to covers, I want to tell you a little bit about this book, one of my books, The Bullet Catcher's Daughter, which is the book in which we first meet the Bullet Catcher's Handbook, which is what I am actually producing in this project. So we can see that each of the chapters begins with a quotation, and it's a quotation from the Bullet Catcher's Handbook. And so that's kind of all that material and a little bit more is what we're putting together to be the words inside the book I'm producing. But have a look at this cover. Now, when we were going through the process of producing this book, I'd written it, and the publishers were helping me with editorial work and cover design and all that sort of stuff. So along came this cover from the wonderful, wonderful designer Will Stale of Seattle, who's an extraordinary creative designer, graphic designer, amazing person, and absolutely an artist in his own right. So there it was, and my first response to it was, well, I like it, but the bullets on the cover, these bullets that make up this sort of feeling of a hand, they are not bullets that would have occurred within this story. In this story, the only bullets would be musket balls. So this cover does not properly represent the story that is inside, so it can't be right. Now, the head of Angry Robot Books, the publisher at that time, Mark Gascoigne, sort of calmly pointed out to me, this is a great cover. This cover is going to sell the book. And no one is going to notice, absolutely no one will notice that the bullets are the wrong kind. And he was right. No one has ever come up to me and said, the bullets on the cover are not the bullets that would have been within this world. However, hundreds of people have come up to me and said, that is an excellent cover. When I saw this cover, I knew I had to have a look. I had to try to read this book. So So it's doing exactly what it should have done. So I tell you that story, that confession, just to prove that how little I know. So another thing that we talked about with respect to this cover was the way the title runs around the outside of the book, and it makes it kind of slightly cryptic, slightly hard to read. And we wondered if that was a problem. And again, it was not my insight to say that actually, if someone is engaged enough to try to decode the puzzle of this title and the way it is written, then we've already got them. They've already picked the book up. They are already puzzling over it, and that we're kind of halfway there already with that. So that was deemed a good thing. What else can we say about this? Well, one thing, I don't know if you can pick it out in this, that the cover, although it's predominantly white, there is it's a sort of distressed white. There's a kind of aged look, particularly around the edge, and there are little things like little cuts, apparent cuts in the paper, which are just printed onto the paper, but they look as if the paper is splitting at the bottom. So it appears old. So again, we've got giving this sense of atmosphere. There's something almost sort of architectural in this. It looks almost like a piece of Georgian architecture. And again, that conjures this idea of history. We've got bullets, which might be taken by some people to be a sort of very action-orientated and potentially masculine story. And we've got a silk purse here, which again kind of conjures an image that some people might say was more of a feminine aspect, and that juxtaposition, that odd mixing, is something that again may trigger questions in people's mind, and it's absolutely true to the atmosphere of the book, which is a major theme of which is a questioning and an examination of our assumptions about gender. So in all these senses, it's conjuring the image, it's conjuring the feeling, it's giving a sense of something historical, a sense of something action-orientated. So there is a semblance of the genre, our idea of the genre appearing there. There is also extra bits of text on the front and on the back. I'm not going to go into those now. We'll have a look at those perhaps in another video. But you can see that it is doing that. And the title, The Bullet Catcher's Daughter, again is implying a kind of story, that there are questions raised by that, which is implying a story that may be within the book. So it's doing all these various things. And just quickly to have a look at the spine, because, as was pointed out to me, the spine is the way that most people will be viewing this book through most of its life in a bookshop, because it'll be stacked with other books in this way. And it'll be in the science fiction and fantasy section. And most of the book spines in that section will be quite dark in colour, blacks and dark blues and things like that. And this one is going to stand out by being this creamy white colour. So there we go. That's a quick tour of that book. And let's now very briefly think about the book that I'm creating. It is not a novel. It is a book that realistically is only going to be bought by people who are already readers of these series of books and are probably quite committed to the story and the world. So it's a sort of an add-on to that kind of material. And so in some ways I'm not having to convince people from the cover of what the kind of story or the kind of contents are going to be. I'm doing a slightly different job. I'm trying to create an object which feels as if it has come straight out of the alternate history of this series of books. And so what I want to do really, rather than emulate a modern cover with a clever cover design, I'm wanting to emulate a book of the 19th century, perhaps slightly earlier, which might have a more plain cover, might be a leather cover or a cloth cover, and might show signs of age. Again, this isn't entirely logical, because if we were in that alternate history, it wouldn't be a long time ago. But I think the feeling, the emotion I want to bring is something of age. And so I've been looking at images of covers, early leather covers, and I've been playing around with those. And I'm going to deal with all that and look at precisely what I've been producing in the next video. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon.